And Hester is going to run it out past the 40 into Giants territory. He is going to go all the way. Touchdown, Chicago.
Trying to find somebody open and throws an interception. And it's Charles Woodson's 55th of his career.
Dives for the touchdown, San Francisco.
I want to play desperately, and I'm going to try to drive everyone nuts till they give me a shot.
Favre threw an almost impossible 336 career interceptions.
See that?
Yeah.
We have here the Brett Favre interceptions calendar.
It's the lovable kicking bear doll. And guess what? It comes with its own goalpost. Isn't that neat?
Double doink.
Ladies and gentlemen, football fans of all kinds, welcome back to Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner. We have a momentous week ahead of us here in the NFL. This is week 11 of the 18 weeks of the NFL season, starting in 2024, ending in 2025, and it has come to this: Green Bay versus the Chicago Bears. But before we get into the real meat and potatoes of that matchup, we've got the Seattle Seahawks playing in what used to be known as Candlestick and is now known as something 49ers. Gold Rush. Let's take us through that matchup real quick.
Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, big NFC West. The only division win the Niners have this year is against the Seahawks on a short week in October, where they had no trouble with them in a hostile Lumen Field. I'm hoping that we'll have good fan support at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara. It's a 1 o'clock Pacific time kickoff, so there's no playing around with time zones and everything else. We should have, again, Juwan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey in the lineup offensively. Trent Williams was questionable. Whether he's good to go or not, we'll see. He's obviously a pillar on the offensive line. And George Kittle also was had nursing a hamstring that he had in practice this week. But I suspect he'll play. Again, you don't want to seem overconfident. Seattle has had an up and down season. They've looked like world beaters, and they've also looked like world beaten. So I'm going to go ahead and take the home team, take my Niners. I don't know if it's a 30-point game for the Niners. I don't know if they need one. But they've just got to contain Seattle's rush. They've got to keep an eye on DK Metcalf. Don't let him start getting off on big plays. And they just have to move the ball efficiently, limit turnovers. And even though McCaffrey is working his way back into game shape, remember that you have Isaac Guerrero and Jordan Mason. So give the bell cow a couple of plays off. I know he hates to come out, but let's try and keep his legs fresh for the late November, December, January runs and not overdo him so far out of the gate. I'm going to call it Niners 28, Seattle 24. Seattle can score, but I think the Niners prevail and then get ready for a Titanic matchup, which we'll preview next week. Wink, wink. Gentlemen, Packers, Bears, can you say any more?
This is what football is all about right here. There's no other matchup in the NFL that matters as much as Packers-Bears. No other two teams in the league could really stack the history here. Maybe Dallas-Pittsburgh, but they aren't really rivals, I don't think. Not since 1995, anyway. Lord Uther, what are your thoughts on the game today?
Yeah. Well, where do I begin? So last week, Caleb Williams was sacked 9 times.
9?
9. So my over-under this week is obviously 4, and I'm going way over on that. We have a new offensive coordinator, which allegedly, now all these stories are coming out about the former OC and how even during training camp he wasn't taking charge enough. But supposedly this guy, Thomas Brown, is this take charge kind of guy that's going to step in, and now everyone's going to automatically respect him, and now the offense is going to play well. It actually got to the point this week that I shut off the radio. I didn't want to hear it anymore, and I think I'm at that point in general, and I think there's a lot of Bears fans out there. They're sick of excuses. It's been excuses since '85, and we're back in excuse mode again. There is no excuse except that you're a horribly run organization. I think that's not even an excuse. I think that's a fact. And now next year you're going to have a new head coach, probably a new offensive coordinator, and now you are continuing what you started with Mitch Trubisky of having new head coach, offensive coordinator. I think Jay Cutler went through it at some point too. So it's just this constant change. There's no consistency. It's all the things we talked about before, and we're going up against an organization that is run properly. And it's like I've always said, when people ask me what I think about the Packers, I respect them. I respect them because of how they've always run their organization, which is they're there, they're trying to make things happen, they're trying to win. And I'm not always convinced that the Bears are trying to do that. And I know what I'm saying is just rehashing what a lot of things that were said around here this week in Chicago, but it's the truth. So I think today we're not just going to lose, I think we're going to get spanked, and it's going to be bad. So I'll probably go Packers 31, Bears 7 is where I'm going to go.
Whew. That's some mad fire right there. I agree. I think the Bears are in a bad way, and yeah, I do think it starts top down. Unfortunately for the Bears organization, the McCaskey family should sell the team. I think it should stay in Chicago. I don't want to see that franchise leave. I do think that they need new leadership, and it starts with the owners. And this is the trouble with having privately owned teams, says the Packers fan, the only publicly owned team in football. But I think it bears truth across the league. A lot of these teams that suffer these decades plus floundering, it comes down to ownership. I think you see it with the Browns, the Jaguars. I think you see it with a lot of the teams out there that have had classic struggles. They can't get out of their own way. I do think the Bears might have a better game than that. But I am going to call it as a spanking. I think they might get 10 or 14 points, but I do think it's going to be 30-something to low teens against the Bears today. I'm going to take the over on sacks. I think they're going to rip off a couple of real lucky plays that's going to keep them in the game early on, and then second half I think they're going to suffer. I think that's sort of been their shtick this year is they come out, they have the advantage of an offensive coordinator that might be playing with some different plays from practice that we're not ready for. But I feel like the second half adjustments are going to get them. The other thing is it's a rivalry game. And I don't want to be trapped by, hey, the Bears suck this year, we're going to beat the hell out of them. I don't think that's true. I think they're underrated in some respects, and that can be a problem if you find yourself overly confident against them. So I'm not gonna hate. I think they have a lot of good things that have happened on the team this year. I think they just have too many not good things that is hurting them. So that's my thoughts on the game. It's going to be a Packer win. We need the win to keep ourselves relevant. We're really hoping that somehow the Jaguars and the Titans win today to keep us in that playoff race. Really, honestly, the Packers got to hope to win out, I think, still. Even though we're still early in the playoff race, it's getting up to crunch time, and some teams are getting hot in the NFC at the right time. Eagles being a big one from that win against the Commanders. Like, you've got some teams that are sort of quietly accumulating wins that it's going to be tough to get that wild card spot. I don't think we're going to see all four NFC North teams like we might have seen a couple weeks ago. We might see three, but I think it's more likely we're going to see two, which means that either the Vikings or the Lions are going to have to get underneath the Packers in the rankings in the NFC North. And that's going to be tough to do if you lose to the Bears today. And it's going to be tough to do if you don't win out the rest of the season. Luckily, I think of all three teams, or all four teams, the Packers have the best shot at doing that, but it's still an uphill battle.
The other thing that frustrates me too is, and I look at these standings, and Minnesota is 7-2, And I feel like if we go back to our original conversations, which of course you can find on the pending rebrand channel, to hear how last week I was saying the OC was probably going to be fired. But with that being said, I feel like the Bears that we're seeing right now is what I was expecting Minnesota to be, and I was expecting the Bears to be Minnesota, and I think a lot of people were. But now, unfortunately, with the way the season is most likely going to end, because I think you're right. I think today, new OC, players feel inspired for a half, maybe 3/4. It falls apart. Because once they experience one little piece of failure, it's all going to fall apart for the Bears, right? Especially with the season they've gone through. And so now you're sitting there going, I think going into next season, you're going to have a lot of angry Bears fans like you do right now, having no expectation. And it gets to the point where it kind of happened with the Cubs in the city of Chicago, where you have to stop showing up. And when you stop showing up, maybe that's when things will change, even though no one showed up to White Sox games this year, and Jerry Reinsdorf is still running that team into the ground. Real quick thing before we probably fade out here. Does Deion Sanders go to the team that drafts his son, or does he stay at Colorado?
I don't think he
Does
has
he go to that
anything-
team to coach?
I don't think he has anything to prove at Colorado anymore. He's turned a program around that was a laughing stock. And if you look at just the 2-year jump from this season to last season, bowl eligible, picking up statement wins, playing more consistently on both sides of the ball. Like, if I felt that Deion had a true passion and commitment like Jim Harbaugh, had at the University of Michigan, then I'd say maybe he'd be in Boulder for life. But I think we all knew going in that was just a stepping stone to build some cred. And it's the next job. I don't think he would even take another college job. Like suddenly if someone, Florida or Alabama or some other powerhouse SEC's like, Deion, come coach us. No, I think it would be an NFL job. And I think he's got one foot out the door, whether he's told anybody or not, as long as that offer is. In terms of tying it to his kid, I hadn't even thought of that. The whole LeBron James thing with so forth. Draft my kid and I'll come help you. But that is an intriguing point. But I see that he's not going to stay in Boulder. I just don't see that.
I think he's going to Dallas, but that's just my feeling. Go ahead.
I'm going to pull it out of left field here. I think he's going to the New York Football Giants.
Ooh, wow.
I think they're going to want a head coach. I think they're going to have a high draft pick. And I think that is a recipe with the money they'll have to pick up what they need. The other side is he might come to Chicago next year too. I doubt he would want to, but it might be an option. And I think the McCaskies, should they not sell the team, are trying to sell that new stadium that they want so bad. And that would be a way to do it, is bring in that kind of star power, that kind of flash. They'll make some money deals under the table for sure to, circumnavigate whatever they got to do. And yeah, I could see Chicago bringing in both Sanders boys, and I also could see that being a terrible flop.
Then what do you do with Caleb Williams? Or is that your trade bait? You trade him to the Giants if the Giants have that first pick.
Ooh.
And then you
see that.
You
I
take
can see it playing out like that.
And the Sanders it's a package deal, right? And then they both come here. And the one thing I'll say about Deion, and I believe I don't know if we talked about it last year, or if it was this year. I think it was last year. We had talked about Sanders a little bit. He's one of the few all-pro players that it's translated into his coaching, because there's very, 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 very few players. Larry Bird, off the top of my head, maybe Bill Russell, though he had a ton of talent when he was player coach and things like that. But I think he's one of the few ones that actually makes that transition. And I think what makes it even better is he can say to any player, whether it's the last player on the team or the star player, I've done that. He's done it all. I've won championships. I've been the best player. Was he an MVP? I think he was an MVP at one, or not, maybe not an MVP, but a defensive player of the year. I think he's done it all. And so how do you, as a player, how can you look at him and not listen? And one more thing, it's like when I see Mike Tomlin talking to players, he just has an aura about him that he's automatically respected because he's not going to take any gruff from anybody. But I think Sanders has both pieces because he can say he did that as a player.
Agreed. I think the only other player who might be able to step up like that would be Brett Favre. But I don't think he wants that. I think he wants to just coach high school football and mow his lawn and drink beer and do his, triathlons with his wife and hopefully stay off everybody's radar because I think he's kind of sick of it. Plus, the whole Parkinson's diagnosis is probably not going to bode well for his future. But yeah, I think that is a rare occasion that Deion, he's got that. The thing is, he has to maintain that level of success for him to be taken seriously.
Right. Real quick, we haven't mentioned it. Was weather even a factor? I mean, when you think Packers-Bears, you're always thinking snow flurries, 22 degrees, and overcast. No?
It's going to be 61 today.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice weather game. It's not going to impact either team. I think the only thing that's going to maybe come into play is conditioning. It's that time of year where guys are going to start pulling muscles and getting hurt for non-contact things. And we've already been seeing that the last week or so. So I feel like the Packers conditioning team has gotten better over the last couple of years. I think the players are younger and a little bit more rubbery. But to be honest, you get 11 games deep into a season, even with the bye week. I think we got to watch out for guys who might be hurt, taking a step wrong. We'll see. It should be a good game. But to all the football fans out there in the American Football Conference, the NFC is not everything. You guys got some good teams as well. But from all of us here at Pending Rebrand at Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner, we hope you're ready for more football because we certainly are. As a matter of fact, game time is coming up quick. Everybody, have a great football Sunday, football Monday, and we will see you back next week for when the Packers and the 49ers face off. Until then, stay ready. It's NFL time.